A little over 20 years ago, I played Final Fantasy VII for the first time, and since then, its soundtrack has sort of become a part of my life. I still listen to it on a regular basis, and nearly every track elicits a strong emotional reaction from me, both because of the role they play in the game itself and the way they remind me of what life was like when I first played it. The whole thing has just stuck with me. There is one song, though, that despite me not wanting to, I find myself thinking about more often than all the rest. And it's this. Even if you know nothing about the game, it is clear within the first second that whoever this theme belongs to is someone you would never want to trifle with, that coming across them would most likely be the last thing you ever do. It just has the sound of evil to it. The track is called Those Chosen by the Planet, and is, of course, the main theme of the game's primary antagonist, Sephiroth. It's one of the first villain themes that I remember actively being creeped out by. At that point of life, I had grown used to more playful big bad themes, like those of Bowser and King K. Rool. So this hit me in a way I didn't expect. It felt designed to make me feel uncomfortable. And of course that's because it was. While there aren't hard and fast rules for how to make a song sound evil, there are common techniques, many of which are used in this track. The most notable one can be seen with its instrumentation, which utilizes various sounds that are often associated with things that make people feel uneasy. From the bell ringing out like a death knell, to the bass drum thumping in the rhythm of a heartbeat, to the slow chants of the MIDI choir that seem to be a call to something dark and unknown, it all evokes an oppressive sense of dread, as if life and death are hanging in the balance. Now, the aspects that cultivate a feeling of evil obviously go far beyond this, and get considerably more technical. For example, it employs a slow tempo which helps it build an ambient feel. It includes sounds that range widely in pitch, leading to some uneasiness due to the distance between notes. It creates dissonance through the use of semitones, tritones, and augmented and diminished chords. And it does all sorts of other things that someone who actually understands music theory could explain the importance of. But just having these elements only goes so far. Sure, it can clue you in on what to expect, but the factor that matters most is how it ties into the rest of the game. The best songs in a title are a part of the story, and that is especially true when it comes to villain themes. Those Chosen by the Planet complement Sephiroth's characterization perfectly. It is measured and deliberate, matching the chilling stoicism he maintains throughout nearly every encounter Cloud and company have with him. Throughout the majority of the game, there is rarely a time where Sephiroth does not come off as being in control, and that is how the theme itself feels. Additionally, the chimes of the bell and pounding heartbeat of the bass drum pair perfectly with the fact that death constantly follows in Sephiroth's wake. In most instances, all it takes is one swing of his sword to end the life of anyone who stands in his way. He is a dealer of death. The music reflects his character, helping to establish him more than just the story could on its own. Along with the theme matching the character it is tied to, another important aspect is how and when it is actually used. In regards to Sephiroth's motif, it not only plays when he shows up, but also when the party is exploring places tied to him in some way, or even just when they're talking about him. It creates a sense that regardless of if he is physically there, he is always haunting the player in some way. And this ties in well with his powers, most notably his ability to control certain people from afar. It highlights the threat he poses and acts as a brilliant way to build tension. The payoff for all of this comes during the final fight. After 3 discs worth of biding his time, Sephiroth's plans finally come to fruition. And with that, he gets an entirely new theme, One-Winged Angel. Where those chosen by the planet is restrained, One-Winged Angel is feral. The tempo increases, more instruments are added to the mix, and in place of a synthesizer doing its best to emulate the sound of a voice, there is an actual choir, an inclusion that when put next to the rest of the soundscape of the game seems impossible. Musically, it feels as if Sephiroth has been unleashed, as if he has broken through every conceivable barrier, coinciding flawlessly with his efforts to gain power. Despite the majority of the songs sharing little resemblance to those chosen by the planet, the melody that players spent the entire game fearing makes a brief appearance, reminding them of every time Sephiroth has outplayed them and how far he has pushed himself to achieve his goals. Through this motif, the game is able to tell a story with its music, and it leads to everything feeling that much more impactful. In general, using variations of a theme is a powerful way of connecting moments together, and while it's incredible to see this be done throughout a single game, it is arguably more impressive when it is done throughout a series. One of the most famous examples of this is Ganon's theme from The Legend of Zelda. It's gone by many different names over the years, but it originates from A Link to the Past with the track Priest of the Dark Order, and it is heard during the first time Link battles Aghanim. Once it is revealed that the evil wizard was merely a puppet of Ganon's, the theme transfers to its proper owner, and it has belonged to him for over 30 years now. The song itself is pretty simple. It centers around an ascending melody with a bunch of half steps that help create a sinister sense of progression to it. It is a rising evil, growing more powerful with every passing second, like Ganon himself. What makes the song truly iconic, though, comes from the unique ways the various games have utilized the theme. In Ocarina of Time, it first appears in a pretty normal way, with it playing during Link's initial encounter with Ganondorf, but where it really shines is near the end when Link begins to climb his way up Ganon's tower. As soon as he enters, the theme can be faintly heard in the distance, being played on an organ, and as Link makes his way up, the music gets louder and louder. It also starts to get more complicated, moving from long sustained notes to much quicker ones, giving an almost desperate feel to it all. And once Link finally makes it to the top, he is met with none other than Ganondorf himself playing the theme. Using the music diegetically in this way gives a new layer of depth to Ganondorf. He plays a song that to this point has only existed for the player, breaking the bounds of what he should know and demonstrating his power in a way one would think is impossible. It's melodramatic in the best way, and despite its absurdity, manages to be chilling. While A Link to the Past is where the theme originated, Ocarina of Time is where the theme became a part of the Zelda formula. It established it as a tradition, and the following games ran with it. Wind Waker uses the theme in a bunch of effective ways, the first instance occurring right after visiting Great Fish Isle. Link is sent there in the hopes of getting another Goddess Pearl, but instead finds the island to be decimated, leaving no other option but to look elsewhere. When he gets back on the water, though, a twisted version of the Great Sea theme plays, turning what is normally the most triumphant song in the game into a discordant mess. At first, it is unclear why this is happening, but then the song gives an answer to those familiar with the series. It's a display of Ganondorf's power that proves Link is nowhere near ready to take on a threat such as him. He's able to corrupt even the most joyful of things and will go to any lengths to achieve his desires. The game's next major use of the theme, which comes up when Link and Ganondorf have their first true confrontation, slows down the tempo considerably, immediately communicating that the Ganondorf of this title is different than previous incarnations. While he is still as cruel and ruthless as ever, it is made clear through this theme that there is a patience and awareness to him that wasn't there before. He feels cold, calculating, and ancient, like he has been waiting for who knows how long to reobtain the power that was stolen from him. The theme manages to both remind longtime fans of all of their other encounters with Ganondorf, while also showing a side to him that hasn't been seen before. The game's final notable use of this motif occurs during the last battle. The majority of the fight is scored with a track that is unique to Wind Waker, but once you get him down to just before the last hit, his theme kicks in with full force, creating a sense that he is only becoming more dangerous, and that if you don't end it soon, you'll be doomed. What makes the moment even more satisfying, though, is that a little bit after his motif starts, the melody of the Great Sea theme can be faintly heard in the background, as if it is fighting against Ganondorf's music while you take on the actual man. It creates a nice moment of hope, a reminder to never give up. Twilight Princess largely incorporates the theme in the same way as previous titles, but it also has what is probably the most obscure usage of it with the Sages. After they inform Link of how they sealed Ganondorf away, their song plays, and the melody of it uses the same first two notes as the one for Ganondorf does. However, instead of continuing its typical climb up the scale, the musical phrase gets diverted and isn't resolved in the way you'd expect it to be. There are a few other times throughout the piece where a part of the theme seems to begin, but it is is always quickly redirected. And all of this makes it feel almost as if Ganondorf is continually pushing against the seal the stage has created for him, but being thrust away by their magic. It is certainly a subtle usage of it, but it is one that can still be felt. From this point of the series on, the theme is used in every entry that has some form of Ganon, and while all of them are implemented effectively enough, it isn't until Breath of the Wild that it really comes back in a big way. It works Ganon's theme into more songs than any other Zelda game. The first time it's heard is when seeing the beast that inhabits Hyrule Castle, but instead of it being played out in its normal way, here each note is played in reverse and the phrase is fragmented, sounding like a hollow version of what it once was. The motif is used in a similar broken way when the Blood Moon appears, having just enough there to be recognizable, but not so much to make it feel as if Ganon has fully returned, establishing the threat that even a restrained version of him can pose. The theme starts to take more of a shape once reaching the Divine Beasts, with the track that plays when fighting enemies while inside them. The song is not the exact same as Ganon's, but it does use a similar half-step progression, creating a link to it. This connection is then fully reinforced during the fights with the various blights, where the musical phrase is played in its entirety as a sort of transition between parts of the song. The theme coming up in all these instances plays into the idea of Calamity Ganon spreading corruption and growing power. It doesn't matter how far away Link is from him, he still has influence over Hyrule. This sense of control comes into even sharper focus when Link enters the castle itself. There is a lot going on in the song, and Ganon's theme plays a prominent role in it, calling back to all of the other times Link has had to scale his tower in order to defeat him. Where this track really shines though is with how it uses themes associated with both Link and Zelda to contrast with Ganon's. Like right after Ganon's phrase finishes, the original Legend of Zelda theme plays with Zelda's lullaby supporting it in the background. It is a response to Ganon's attempts at domination, expanding even further on the use of dueling themes established in Wind Waker. And this conflict between Ganon's theme and the various ones that represent Link continues on throughout the many phases of the Ganon fight, culminating in what is probably the best song in the entire game, Dark Beast Ganon. In it, the Breath of the Wild theme goes head-to-head with Ganon's theme in a flurry of horns, strings, and piano, creating a chaotic and epic sound for this final encounter. While Breath of the Wild is famous for the ways it abandoned many Zelda traditions, it uses its music as a means to remind players that despite all the things that have changed, this is the same evil that they fought against for decades, and likely will continue to fight against for as long as Nintendo keeps making Zelda games. Like those chosen by the planet, Ganon's theme does more than just signal his arrival. It tells a story and helps highlight certain moments and ideas in order to make them as impactful as possible. The long history of the series and the song give its every use that much more meaning. Now, while I adore both of these villain themes and consider them to be some of the best of all time, neither is my personal favorite. That honor belongs to Gaunter O'Dimm's theme from The Witcher 3: Hearts of Stone. It employs many of the techniques that I've talked about so far and capitalizes on them in wildly effective ways that just feel like a perfect fit for the character. In general, O'Dimm is a fascinating villain, as he is clearly a being of immense power, but despite that, he doesn't have the same kinds of aspirations that other evildoers with his abilities would. He doesn't concern himself with dreams of world domination, and instead is content simply toying with people, regardless of if they are nobility or beggars. He is the sort of villain you only hear about in folktales, and his song feels like it belongs in a folktale. Unlike those chosen by the planet or Ganon's theme, it has a melody that is both easy to carry and enjoyable to listen to. It flows smoothly and can be hummed by anyone. It's the sort of simple song that gets stuck in your head almost too easily. In fact, the first time most players will hear the theme is from children singing it near various crossroads. The song exists in the world of the game, and to these children, it is just a nursery rhyme, a fable their parents tell them to keep them in line. Obviously though, it is more than just a myth. The lyrics of the song perfectly describe O'Dimm and essentially lay out what will happen throughout Hearts of Stone. Now, while this is an encounter pretty much every player will come across, it isn't one all of them will commit to memory, as a group of kids singing a song doesn't feel like notable information. It just feels like a way to build atmosphere. But once the connection is made, whether it's from the first time time the theme is properly played, or from when O'Dimm himself is whistling it at the crossroads, or from some time later, it is a chilling realization and makes it clear that Geralt is dealing with a special type of evil. O'Dimm's motif appears in the majority of songs on the soundtrack, providing many variations that all serve different functions. For instance, the version that plays when Geralt first encounters him in the DLC has the melody being played with some sort of hammered dulcimer, making each note feel short and matter-of-fact. Also, the majority of instruments are being played more in the mid-range, with very few super high or low notes. All of this serves to make him feel a bit more grounded and restrained. Even though O'Dimm shows he has power that goes beyond a typical human's, this version makes him feel akin to any other magic user in the game. However, as you meet with him more and more and he begins revealing the wider extent of his powers, the theme shifts and a shrill violin takes over the melody. This change alone makes the theme go from menacing to sinister. Most of the traditional instruments that we're used to hearing in Witcher music are absent, and in their place is a mixture of voices and a low, deep, droning sound. Here, his theme comes off as ethereal, and despite him looking like a simple merchant, he feels like a dark god. And this is due in part to him having a way of seeming to be everywhere, and that's kind of because he is. He shows up during the majority of quests in the DLC, sometimes making his presence known as he enjoys toying with Geralt, but other times he will just appear in the background of scenes without any explanation of why he is there or Geralt even noticing him. He just always shows up. Hell, he is one of the first characters Geralt talks to in the base game. He can be anywhere, and the music extends that feeling even further. Aside from just being reminded of him every time you pass a group of kids singing his song, there are a few instances where the theme plays when he is not even there. But because his music still is, he feels as if he could be right around the corner. Even when you think he's gone, he's still making an impact on the world. Also, and I don't want to give this next bit too much credit as it is a glitch that not every player will experience, but as I did, I think it's worth mentioning. If you load the save from just after finishing the quest Whatsoever a Man Soweth, O'Dimm's theme will play on repeat no matter where you go, and it only stops if you do something that triggers a different song to play. As I activated this glitch unknowingly, I assumed it was intentional, a way to have O'Dimm haunt me until I finished my end of the bargain. And it did. As I rode to the final confrontation with him, I couldn't help but feel like he might appear out of nowhere at any moment and tell me my soul was forfeit. Of course, while this glitch did elevate my uneasiness to a new level, I had already been sufficiently unnerved by all the buildup that had been done before it. And that buildup does also pay off in an intentional way with the final version of the theme, which combines elements of the various iterations to create what is by far the most chilling rendition of it. What really makes this version stand out is that it includes the voices of the singing children, almost making it feel as if O'Dimm's power is tied to the stories that are told and sung about him, that we are what keeps him around. This adds even more to the prickling feeling that he has been watching you all this time, and that he may be watching you until the end of time. That no matter where you are or how safe you think you might feel, he could be in any crowd, any inn, any crossroads, any reflection even, just waiting for you to make the mistake of noticing him. Of all the things that the three villain themes I've talked about here have in common, this is the shared trait that I think has made them stick with me for so long. With how they're composed and how they're used throughout their respective games, these songs just do such an effective job of preying on that sense of uneasiness that comes from the feeling of always being watched, the feeling of not actually being in control, the feeling of never being able to escape. There are many aspects that go into making these three villains feel as threatening as they do. Everything from their character design to how they're written to the way they are framed in any shot they're in helps create an unshakable sense of foreboding about them. But it is their music that has kept that feeling alive for me all this time later, because I can engage with it outside of the games themselves. When I beat a title, I often go back to listen to the soundtrack, to reminisce about my favorite moments and just enjoy how well crafted the songs are. And these themes are always hiding in there, waiting to be played, to remind me that despite overcoming these villains, I haven't shaken them completely, and that I can never truly know if or when they'll come back. Clearly, despite my better judgment, I adore villain themes, and when researching for this piece, I listened to so much music related to bad guys and bosses, but a lot of it didn't really fit with this video for one reason or another. As I still wanted to talk about a few of my favorites though, I decided to make a bonus video where I primarily touch on boss themes that I really like, and you can watch that right now over on Nebula. Nebula is a streaming service owned by creators, myself being one of them, and over there you can watch everything I post on YouTube ad-free, as well as a ton of videos that are exclusive to Nebula. Anytime I have a new video here, I post a bonus one over there, which ranges from typical video essays to interviews to top 5 lists to now me talking more about some of my favorite video game music. It is also one of the best ways to support me as a creator, because when you sign up for Nebula using my link in the description, I get a chunk of that money for as long as you're subscribed. And when you sign up for a year using my link, it comes out to just $2.50 a month, and you not only get access to the exclusive stuff I make, but also to everything else on the website. Nebula has a ridiculous amount of great content for you to engage with, and it gives tons of opportunities that help allow incredible creators to create incredible things. It's given me the chance to expand what I do, which is awesome. So check it out if you want to hear me gush about Megalovania. Anyway, thanks to Nebula for sponsoring this video. For the rest of you, hi. I'd like to thank my patrons for making this channel possible, and give a special shout out to WilliamGlenn8 and Victor DUva for being honorary bagbutens. I appreciate you. I hope you all have a great day and or night, and I will see you in the next one.